Imagine being only 12 years old. Your father is sent to prison because of debt. You leave school and spend your days working in a dark, dirty factory. Most people would lose hope. But one young boy turned his pain into stories that touched millions of hearts. Those stories exposed poverty, inspired kindness, and changed English literature forever. His name was Charles Dickens. Today, we will follow his incredible journey from a frightened child living in poverty to one of the greatest writers the world has ever known. Along the way, you will discover his struggles, his greatest books, his personal life, and the lasting legacy that continues to inspire readers around the world. This is not just a history story. As you listen, you will naturally improve your English. This story uses standard English that is clear, natural, and easy to follow. It is perfect for B1 and B2 learners. You will learn useful vocabulary, natural sentence patterns, and improve your listening skills while discovering the incredible life of Charles Dickens. Let's begin. Chapter 1: A Childhood Filled with Dreams and Poverty. Charles John Huffam Dickens was born on February 7, 1812, in Portsmouth, England. His father, John Dickens, worked as a clerk in the Navy Pay Office, while his mother, Elizabeth Dickens, believed strongly in education. During his early childhood, life felt peaceful. Charles loved listening to stories, reading books, and exploring the world around him. Even as a young boy, he showed a remarkable imagination that would later shape some of the greatest novels ever written. When Charles was still young, his family moved several times because of his father's work. Eventually, they settled in London, one of the fastest-growing cities in the world. The city was exciting, but it was also filled with sharp contrasts. Grand buildings stood only a few streets away from crowded neighborhoods where poverty, disease, and child labor were common. Although Charles did not fully understand it yet, these scenes quietly stayed in his memory. Behind the smiles at home, another story was unfolding. John Dickens enjoyed living beyond his means. He borrowed money freely and struggled to repay it. As the family's debts grew, daily life became more difficult. Bills piled up and financial pressure filled the household with uncertainty. Charles watched his parents worry, even though they tried to protect their children from the truth. Then came the day that changed everything. John's debts became so serious that he was arrested and sent to the Marshalsea debtors' prison. Under English law at the time, families often joined imprisoned relatives because they had nowhere else to go. Overnight, the secure world Charles knew fell apart. His education stopped, his future became uncertain, and childhood suddenly felt very far away. Charles would never forget this painful moment. The fear, the shame, and the helplessness settled deep inside him. Years later, those memories would return in the pages of his novels, giving voice to children and families who had suffered in silence. In the next chapter, we will see how a 12-year-old boy entered a factory that would leave emotional scars for the rest of his life and unknowingly begin the journey toward becoming one of history's greatest storytellers. Chapter 2: The Factory That Changed His Life. At the age of 12, Charles Dickens began working at Warren's blacking factory, a place where shoe polish was made. Instead of sitting in a classroom, he spent long hours pasting labels onto small bottles. The work was repetitive, tiring, and lonely. Around him were children and adults who struggled every day just to survive. Charles felt deeply ashamed. He believed his dreams had disappeared forever. Watching other children go to school while he worked in the factory broke his heart. Years later, he admitted that this was one of the most painful periods of his life. The emotional wounds never truly healed. After a few months, his father was released from prison because of an inheritance left to the family. Charles was finally able to return to school. Although he was grateful, he could never forget the factory. The memories stayed with him for the rest of his life. Those painful experiences later became the foundation of many unforgettable characters. Children like Oliver Twist and David Copperfield carried the same fear, loneliness, and hope that Charles had once felt as a young boy. As Charles grew older, he made a quiet promise to himself. One day, he would tell stories that the world could never ignore. Chapter 3, Becoming a Writer Nobody Could Ignore. After finishing school, Charles Dickens did not become a famous writer overnight. He first learned shorthand, a skill that allowed him to write down spoken words very quickly. This helped him find work as a court reporter, where he carefully recorded legal cases. Later, he became a newspaper journalist, traveling across London and observing people from every part of society. These experiences taught him something no classroom could. He met judges, lawyers, workers, beggars, merchants, and children living in poverty. He listened to their stories and remembered every detail. Without realizing it, Charles was collecting the characters who would later fill his novels. In 1836, he published Sketches by Boz, a collection of short stories and observations about everyday life. Readers loved its humor and honesty. That same year, he began writing The Pickwick Papers. The novel was published in monthly parts, and with each new chapter, more people became eager to read it. Before long, Charles Dickens had become one of the most popular writers in Britain. The young boy who once believed his future was lost had found his true purpose. His journey was only beginning, and his greatest stories were still waiting to be written. Chapter 4, The Stories That Changed the World. Success gave Charles Dickens a voice, but he chose to use it for people who had no voice of their own. Instead of writing only for entertainment, he wrote about the struggles of ordinary people. His novels made readers laugh, cry, and think about the society around them. In Oliver Twist, he revealed the harsh lives of orphaned children and exposed the cruelty of workhouses. The novel shocked many readers and brought attention to the suffering of children living in poverty. In A Christmas Carol, Dickens introduced the unforgettable Ebenezer Scrooge. Through Scrooge's transformation, he reminded people that kindness, generosity, and compassion are more valuable than wealth. The story became one of the most beloved Christmas tales ever written. Many readers believe David Copperfield was Dickens' most personal novel. Like Charles himself, David faced hardship as a child, worked at a young age, and refused to give up on his dreams. The book reflected many of Dickens' own memories and emotions. He continued writing remarkable novels, including Bleak House, Hard Times, A Tale of Two Cities, and Great Expectations. Each book explored different sides of human life: justice, sacrifice, hope, ambition, and redemption. His stories entertained millions while encouraging people to see the world with greater understanding and compassion. By the middle of the 19th century, Charles Dickens was no longer just a successful writer. He had become one of the most influential voices of his generation. Chapter 5 fame could not protect him from pain. As Charles Dickens became more successful, his life grew busier than ever. He married Catherine Hogarth in 1836, and together they had 10 children. While raising a large family, Dickens continued writing novels that readers eagerly awaited. Deadlines were constant, yet he rarely slowed down. His fame soon spread beyond Britain. Crowds filled lecture halls to hear him give public readings from his novels. He did not simply read the words, he performed them with emotion, changing his voice for each character. Audiences laughed, cried, and often gave him standing ovations. But behind the applause, his personal life was becoming more difficult. The demands of work, frequent travel, and family pressures placed a heavy strain on his marriage. In 1858, Charles and Catherine separated after more than 20 years together. The separation attracted public attention and became one of the most talked about events of his private life. Despite these personal struggles, Dickens refused to stop writing. He believed that stories could still make a difference, and he poured his energy into his work. Even during his hardest years, his imagination never lost its power. In the next chapter, we will see how Charles Dickens used his writing not only to entertain readers, but also to challenge injustice and inspire social change. Chapter 6: The Writer Who Fought with Words. Charles Dickens believed that a novel could do more than entertain. He believed it could open people's eyes. Through his stories, he exposed child labor, poor education, dangerous factories, unfair laws, and the harsh conditions faced by the poor in Victorian Britain. His books reached thousands of readers every month. People did not just enjoy his characters, they began talking about the problems those characters faced. Dickens gave a human face to poverty, reminding readers that behind every statistic was a real person with hopes, fears, and dreams. He also remained active outside his novels. Dickens supported charities, encouraged better education for children, and spoke about the need for compassion and social responsibility. He believed that a stronger society was built not only through wealth, but through kindness and justice. As the years passed, Charles Dickens became more than a best-selling author. He became a voice for those who were often ignored. His stories influenced public opinion and continue to inspire readers to this day. But years of constant writing and exhausting public performances had begun to take a serious toll on his health. Chapter 7: Of a Remarkable Life. By the late 1860s, years of writing, editing, and public readings had left Charles Dickens physically exhausted. Even though his health was declining, he refused to disappoint his readers. He continued traveling across Britain, filling theaters with people eager to hear him perform scenes from his novels. In 1865, Dickens survived the Staplehurst rail crash, one of the most shocking train accidents of the time. Although he escaped with his life and helped other passengers, the experience deeply affected him. Friends noticed that he never fully recovered from the emotional and physical strain. Despite repeated warnings from his doctors, Dickens kept writing. He began his final novel, The Mystery of Edwin Drood. But he would never have the chance to finish it. On June 9, 1870, Charles Dickens suffered a stroke at his home, Gad's Hill Place. The following day, June 10, he passed away at the age of 58. News of his death spread quickly across Britain and beyond. Millions of readers mourned the man whose stories had become part of their lives. Although he had wished for a simple funeral, Charles Dickens was laid to rest in Poets' Corner at Westminster Abbey, alongside some of Britain's greatest writers. It was a final tribute to a man whose words had changed literature forever. In our final chapter, we will discover why the voice of Charles Dickens continues to echo around the world more than a century after his death. Chapter 8: A Legacy That Will Never Fade. Charles Dickens died in 1870, but his stories never disappeared. More than 150 years later, millions of people around the world still read his novels. His books have been translated into many languages and continue to inspire readers of every generation. Stories like Oliver Twist, A Christmas Carol, David Copperfield, A Tale of Two Cities, and Great Expectations have been adapted into countless films, television series, and stage productions. His unforgettable characters remain part of popular culture, proving that great storytelling never grows old. Today, Students study Charles Dickens in schools and universities across the world. Writers continue to admire his unforgettable characters, realistic dialogue, and powerful descriptions of society. His work reminds us that literature can entertain, educate, and inspire change at the same time. Perhaps the greatest lesson Charles Dickens left behind is this: your past does not have to decide your future. A boy who once worked in a small factory, believing his dreams were over, became one of the greatest authors in history. He transformed pain into purpose and hardship into hope. If you enjoyed this journey through the life of Charles Dickens and want to discover more incredible stories from history while improving your English, don't forget to subscribe to History Meets English. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.